Everybody, Mark Garrow here from PRN. So glad to be part of the Alan Kulwicki Driver Development Program. And the last time that I talked to Seth Christensen, he had just been named as one of the finalists for the 2025 Alan Kulwicki program. So what's it been like, Seth, since then? At that point, you were just kind of, wow, this is really cool. What was it like in the days after?
Oh man, it's awesome. Just from the time from being named in the top five to now, I've learned so much from this program. I've learned so much from Casey, Ryan, and everybody involved, and just to continuously grow in this program and get to learn so many new things about Alan's story and getting to represent him is it's just such a blessing.
Have you found something out about Alan's story that you didn't know before? That
Yeah, so
kind
I
of
actually did some research a little bit ago, and I found out that it was either 87 or 88 when him and AJ Foyt got together, and I guess AJ Foyt hit him in the door one time, but he got him confused with someone else. But I didn't know that he had that little conflict. He always has been known for just kind of staying in his own lane and being his own person, but pretty recently I found that out. So I guess it's pretty cool to have some similarities that okay, you had some disagreements with somebody and it got resolved pretty quick. So it's cool to have that similarity that I just recently found out about.
So how do you handle that? Have you had any situations where you've had to speak your mind or let another driver know, like, okay, we might have crossed the line here?
Um, I've had some conversations with some other drivers before. Just the tracks down here were all super close. It's very high stakes, and I believe it's a lot of it is the tires' fault. Sometimes it's the tires that we're running that gets these cars so close together, and that kind of causes some conflict on the track, whether it's intentional or not. But so, that kind of stuff happens in racing. It's gonna happen. You're gonna wreck a car. You're gonna get into somebody that you don't mean to get into. So to handle that either on the track or off the track is always important. And I always take pride in, okay, I didn't mean to do that. And what can we do about this going forward to prevent something like that from happening again? So
So,
getting
so,
to learn
bas
from,
so basically, the way you guys race down there, you all kind of have the same mindset, is what you're saying
oh, yeah,
in
100%.
handling
Everybody is
that.
on top of each other. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, look, how has the season gone so far? We've had one trip to victory lane, but how do you look at it overall?
I mean, it's the entire play and the entire overall the outlook is a success. We've had a win, we've had a couple good finishes, some top fives and top tens, and even some not so good finishes. But even if we have a bad finish or something bad happens on the track, we still learn it. We still learn something about the race weekend. Like going up to Berlin with the shot co-development team and having a not good finish at the Money in the Bank was pretty rough if you really look at it. But getting to know more about the car, getting to know more about Evan and all the crew members and what adjustments that we're making to make this car go faster. So everything that we do, we're always learning something, whether it's on or off the track.
So what's the highlight? Is the win the highlight, or is there something else that jumps out?
The win is definitely the highlight. Getting to be the first winner this season of the top five was really important to me, and to get to win at a place like Mobile was just super cool. Mobile is super fast paced, all around the bottom. You're kind of on top of each other, even though it's such a big track. So it was super cool to go there and win and do pretty well with our JC Motorsports team.
So we have a win, three top fives, four top tens, and eight races. That's a pretty good chunk of points. Do you keep track of the driver point part of this program, not only for yourself, but what the other four drivers are doing?
Yes, sir. Since that's the only thing that we can really keep track of, specific number wise, that's something we're always looking at. I'm always comparing just to see how the other drivers are doing and going and watching some of the races, whether it's at Star or Thunder Road or some of those races up north, just going to go watch and watching the competition side of things and saying, oh, I like what they did. I might as well might try to incorporate that to my racing as well as some of the other things that they do on track.
Now, one of the new avenues with the Alan Kulwicki Driver Development Program is the mentorship part of this deal. Cal Lawson is your mentor throughout the season. How has that worked, and how has that benefited what you've been able to do?
Oh yeah, Mr. Cal is great. He always has a good opinion on if something happens on the track or off the track, or he's always a good person to talk to. He's very down to earth and he's very knowledgeable about about Alan's story. He was around Alan for such a long time, and getting to hear stories from Cal and some of the other mentors in the program just on our regular meetings that we have. It's all super cool to have this mentorship program and to have somebody that we can go to all the time. It's just super special.
Does he give you insight on? We were just talking about points. There's a wild card deal that you can do this year. It can double up your points at races. There's rules and regulations that go with that as far as the timing. But have you guys talked about that and how to use that strategically to try to put you in the best position to at least gather the most driver points because that's the one thing that you can directly control?
Absolutely. Mr. Cal always has a good opinion and a good insight on what he thinks I should do. And he makes a big deal. He's like, I'm not a driver. I'm not going to tell you what to do or do it or I'm not going to tell you specifically what to do, but he's always going to give help. Always has an inside look on things and always has a good opinion on when I should do things and when I shouldn't do things. And just a little sneak peek, we're looking at doing the Caraway race as our next wild card event. So I'm super excited to not official yet, but we're always looking at it. Those big races are always super cool to show out at.
So Caraway's not that far away from me. I might just show up at that race to cheer you on, or
That'd be
maybe
great.
rag you from the grandstands. Maybe that's the best thing I can do. But I'll be the one guy heckling, the nicest guy at the racetrack. I'll be the guy heckling the nicest driver in the pit area. So if you hear somebody yelling from the fence, that'll be me. Um, as far as the wild card races, have you saved them up? Have you used a wild card yet? Where are you with that?
We've only used one so far, and I feel like some of our races later in the year, we're going to have better opportunities to use some of them. Some of the car counts in our previous races haven't been super consistent, so I'm kind of worried on using them at the wrong time. And I know the Cars Tour race is going to be a hard race to do well at just because of the level of competition and all of the pressure that everyone gets at those kinds of races. But I mean, what is there a better place to use that kind of use those kinds of wild cards? I mean, you're going to have all the publicity in the world there, especially for short track racing, and you're going to have that on your shoulders on top of trying to perform at the highest level of short track racing. So it's going to be a lot of pressure, but it's going to be super cool to show out in front of Dale and Kevin and everybody involved in that car store program.
All right. So the plan for the rest of the season, you've had 8 starts so far. How many starts do you think that you'll have at the end of the year?
We're aiming for around 12, and that's always going to change depending on circumstances with my main team, JC Motorsports, and the other two teams as well. So it's always just going to be what works logistically. Going up to Michigan is going to be super hard just because it's a 13-hour drive from our house, and we always drive up there. So it's going to be it's all going to depend on circumstances, but we're aiming for around 12 more just to complete our 20 race goal.
So at the end of that, what would be a success? A couple, 3 more wins? How do you set goals at this point? Now that you have started the year, you already have been to victory lane. What kind of goal setting have you been able to do, or do you do that here for the remainder of the year?
Oh, I absolutely do. One of the biggest things that my parents tell me is aim high, so if you fall a little bit short, you're okay. And one of the goals that I made in the beginning of the year was to win 50% of the races. And that seems astronomical in the grand scheme of things. Winning 10 out of 20 races would be huge, but just to win a couple is still going to be pretty cool. So I've always been told to set your goals super high, so if you fall a little bit short, it's okay.
Reach for the stars and keep your feet on the ground was some
There you go.
famous
That's right.
famous thing. I think Casey Kasem, again, there's another name you won't know, that did a very famous musical countdown, and that's how he would end his shows, like keep your feet on the ground, reach for the stars. Batting 500, you realize batting 500, if in baseball you get a contract for like $1 billion, if you could somehow pull that. If you could do that in racing, I'm not sure you'd make a billion, but I think you'd make a decent living if you could win half your races.
Oh man, that would be nuts. Casey's gotten me into the MLB stuff, so it's been super cool to keep up with the Tigers a little more often. So, man,
There
I
you
wouldn't
go.
mind a Tigers contract. Batting 500 sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I bet they'd like that too if they could send somebody up to the plate that could do that. One question that has popped into my head, and we were talking about earlier about how you learn stuff about Allen that you didn't know, and the fact that he, tried to pick a fight with AJ Foyt, that's not, that's good, not good for anybody's health back then. And Allen obviously, that I'm joking, Allen obviously knew that. Um, if you had a chance, you're talking to Cal and you're talking to these other people inside the Allen Kulwicki Driver Development Program who had direct access to Allen, right? Who knew him, who traveled with him, raced with him. But it's not the same thing as being able to talk to the man himself. If you ever had that chance in your mind, and say, I have a chance to sit down and talk to Alan Quickie, what would you like to ask him? What would you like to know about his career or how he raced? What would you want to know?
I feel like one of the biggest and most important things in racing is knowing that you're going to fail. You're always going to have, or you're sometimes going to have great success. You're going to win this race by X amount of seconds. You're going to have an awesome weekend, perfect weekend, but you're also going to have weekends where you could go wrecking practice or qualifying or not even make the race. So I feel like dealing with a little bit of dealing with bad situations is something that's really intriguing to me. There are a lot of different ways people go about it. Some people just shrug it off and go to the next weekend without any effect on themselves mentally, and that's super cool to me. I really like how people can do that, and I feel like Alan. I feel like from the stories that I hear, Alan was very much like that. He was very easily shaking whatever disagreements or anything that went on happened. If he had a parts failure at a race, he was always good at shaking that off and moving on to the next week. And I feel like getting that story or getting that from a third person point of view or from a third party is always super cool to hear that stuff. But to ask Alan that directly just make it would make the whole year just to understand how he gets to deal with conflict or bad races or bad weekends or a bad day out of the track or just something like that would be great.
Well, drivers are so great at taking this smallest sliver of a silver lining, right? You can wreck 3 laps into a race, be knocked out of the race, and you go to interview him and say, man, I know we got knocked out early, but that car was fast enough to win, right? They always have a way, you always have a way of getting the smallest little sliver of silver lining so that you can go on to the next race and deal with the disappointment. And I think in talking to Alan about that, he would have certainly been able to give you some insight. And I think one other thing that kind of stood out to me about Alan, and it really stands out among all the successful people in this business, whether you're an owner, driver, crew chief, media member, you've got to persevere, right? Because it is not a straight line up. It's kind of a rocky road at times. And racing will certainly test your perseverance, won't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we went to Mobile and had a great race, and the past 2 weeks for me have just been atrocious. We've wrecked 2 cars, and we finally went to Pensacola and didn't have a scratch on the car, but we didn't finish that great. So it's always going to be an up and down, like you said, Mark, up and down road. And I feel like it's how you deal with it is what matters. That carries you on to the next week.
Well, so far, you've had a pretty good season to date, but you have up to 12 more races. And as I've heard in this conversation, you're going to win at least 6, right?
That's the goal. That's always the goal.
So we've learned today that that Ryan has that Seth has thrown down the gauntlet and is going to win half of the races that he's going to run the rest of the year. Now, if that happens, believe me, more power to you. But we all know in racing that's a pretty high percentage to win, but might as well shoot for it. The other thing I will say again, remember the other thing that we found out in this podcast is that if you race at Caraway, I will heckle you from the grandstands. All right.
That
So
sounds
that'll
great.
just
I need
just to make you
somebody.
feel at home. And just to make you feel like not everybody out there loves me, and every driver needs a heckler. Every driver needs at least one heckler, and I'll be your guy
That's
at
right.
Caraway. How about that?
That sounds great, Mark. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Good luck the rest of the season, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This was awesome.